This video is brought to you by ablmerch.com. You're able to get all the hats I wear in the videos, plus a large selection of other hats, t-shirts, stickers, hoodies, and more through the link in the description box below. How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today I bring you an update on the autopsy of Mr. George Floyd. Now, I did a video yesterday where I gave you the initial autopsy from Hennepin County up there in Minneapolis. Now, their finding was that there was no evidence to support asphyxiation or strangulation as the cause of death, because that's what people thought. You know, everybody knows what happened. You had Officer Derek Chauvin with his knee on George Floyd's neck for like 8, almost 9 minutes. And in that period of time, that's when he died. People said that he was choked to death, similar to Eric Garner. But the medical examiner did not find that in the initial autopsy. They have found that the cause of death was homicide, but that's not necessarily a criminal offense. I mean, you could kill somebody by accident, and that could be a homicide. Homicide just means that a person caused the death of somebody else. Homicide is just what the word means, just in the literal sense. It's not an indication of guilt. Medical examiners don't render guilty verdicts or anything. They don't give charges. All they can do is just say how somebody died. But I'll move on. My whole point is that they did not have any evidence of strangulation or asphyxiation, although they did come back and say homicide. Now, their second autopsy that's been released says the exact opposite. And that was from Michael Baden, who was hired by the family of George Floyd. Now, Michael Baden is a very interesting character. He is a celebrity pathologist, believe it or not. He testified in the OJ trial in favor of OJ. He also did private autopsies on Michael Jackson, Chokwe Lumumba, Aaron Hernandez, the guy who was on the Patriots and killed people, the gang member, the gangbanger, him. And the most recent person, and before George Floyd, you also had the most famous one, and that was Jeffrey Epstein. Now, in the Epstein case, he was a guy that came and said that Epstein did, in fact, kill himself, when the initial results said that it didn't happen. Now, I think that Epstein did kill himself, but not necessarily because of what Michael Baden said. You understand? It was so many factors. It was a cacophony of errors, if you will. I felt that way before Baden gave his verdict. Now, let's get back to Mr. George Floyd. The initial report says that there was no evidence of asphyxia or strangulation, but Michael Baden comes and says that there was evidence of asphyxia and strangulation. They're also talking about stuff on his back and all kind of stuff. So, okay. The initial story that we were all told, that we all pretty much believed, was that Derek Chauvin had his knee on George Floyd's neck and that caused his death. But the first medical examiner said that didn't happen. That's not what it was. It was a combination of other things. You're talking about coronary artery disease, hypertensive heart disease. Also, he had drugs in the system. And by the way, we do know what those drugs are. We have the results back from toxicology, and they said he had methamphetamine and fentanyl in the system. So between the meth, the fentanyl, the coronary artery disease, hypertensive heart disease, maybe that could have contributed to his death. And then being under stress from being arrested, being detained in a certain way, being held down, maybe that caused it. Maybe it wasn't necessarily the guy's knee on his neck. I don't know, but I digress. Michael Baden says that the knee from Derek Chauvin on George Floyd's neck did in fact lead to his death because he had suppressed the carotid artery, which restricted blood flow to his brain. That's what he's saying. But who knows if that's true? Who knows if that's false? People are just kind of like giving their opinion. People were saying that the first report was bogus. I'm like, how do you know the first report was bogus? What are you basing that on? Are you a pathologist? Are you a doctor? Do you really understand these things? Do you have access to the evidence that the private pathologist did and the medical examiner in Hennepin County did? Do you have that evidence? I'm not really sure that you do. If you were to ask me which one is right, which one is wrong, I don't really know. But what I do know, just one thing I do know, is that Michael Baden has a pattern of going against the grain and delivering different results. You know, I'm not sure why. Maybe he's just some kind of excellent person that has the best skills in the world, and there's nobody else that can do better than him because he gets hired in all these cases. Maybe, just maybe that's the case. Or maybe he's getting paid to deliver whatever verdict that whoever's paying them wants to get. I'm just saying I don't know, because I'm not sure how you go from being the private pathologist in Jeffrey Epstein's case to now you're working with George Floyd. I'm not sure how that really goes. How did Benjamin Crump, this guy who's from Florida or something, get to the guy in New York to go out there to Minneapolis? I'm just asking questions, all right? I don't know who's right and who's wrong. What I think should happen is we should get a third opinion, all right? Get somebody that's non-biased, just a neutral third party to give their point of view. Because look at it like this. If one doctor says you have cancer, the other one says you don't, who do you believe? Do you just believe one versus the other? Do you believe the one that says you don't have it because it's what you want to believe? You probably should get a third opinion, fourth opinion, fifth opinion to get down to the bottom of what's going on. And like I said before, I don't think that what happened to Mr. Floyd is right at all, not in the least bit. But at the same time, we got to get down to what's fact, what's fiction, what's lawful, what's unlawful. And then at that point, we can go forward, reach a conclusion. But until then, we just kind of spinning and twirling in the wind. We're not really getting anywhere because we're just kind of arguing over who's right, who's wrong, whose opinion is correct, whose opinion is incorrect. All right. But I do think that all the other factors had a part to play. In the autopsy from Michael Baden, they didn't really touch on the drugs and the conditions he had before, like the heart disease, and they didn't really touch on that. They were saying that they don't think that those things or any conditions he had led up to his death. So they're not denying that there was any conditions previously, but they're also not trying to tell you that that's what it was. They're trying to just rely on this whole thing about a knee on the neck. Now, like I said, they could be right and they could be wrong. I don't think it's right for anybody to just say that one side is right versus the other. The mainstream media are the biggest culprits in this, okay, because their report on a second autopsy that came from the family, the private one, but they won't report on the first one that came out on Friday. Now, the reason why I did my video yesterday is because I'm one person, I can't get to every story. I take Sundays off, all right? But if I was CBS, CNN, ABC, MS13, DNC, I'll be able to report on the autopsy right away. I have the resources. I get everybody just sitting around the news and waiting on news to report. I'll report that right away. Maybe they think that'd be kind of inflammatory to say that there was no foul play on the behalf of the police. Maybe that's what's going on. I really don't know, but they are reporting on the second one. Some places are just reporting on the second one and totally ignoring the first one. CNN to report on the second one and then have the first one in footnotes at the bottom of the article. It's kind of backwards, right? You should report the first one first, second one second. But anyway, some outlets are just totally ignoring the first one. I think that's unfair. I'm giving you what happened in the first one, the second one. Now I think we need to get to the third one. But at the end of the day, as I close, like I said, I don't think Mr. Floyd deserved to die, but I think that the martyrization, if that's the word, of him is a little bit too much. This guy was not necessarily a role model by any stretch of the imagination. And if you want to figure out why, I linked to that in the box. Nothing crazy. But anyway, you understand what I'm saying? This guy was not some kind of pillar of virtue. None, not whatsoever. So I don't think that labeling him some kind of deity or some kind of martyr makes any kind of sense. If he were to have died from a fentanyl overdose, which he had in his system, like I said, or if he was to get killed by somebody else that were black, even the black cop, nobody would care at all. Nobody would know his name. It's sad to say, it's unfortunate to say, but it's the absolute truth. Can't nobody tell me I'm lying. The energy that we're spending on this could be spent in a more productive and constructive way. We'd be able to get much further if we put all the energy we're spending on George Floyd into things that will actually push society forward in a positive and actually progressive way, not in the regressive way that the left is trying to do right now. But I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? Do you think that the first autopsy was correct? How about the second one? Whatever your views on the autopsies are, let me know in the comments below. Do you think that the news media are reporting on the second one and pretty much ignoring the first one, because if they talk about the first one, then they could be seen as racist, they could be seen as inflammatory? If that's your viewpoint, let me know why in the comments below. You pretty much know where I stand. We got to be fair, we got to be open, we got to be honest. We can't just, have a particular narrative out there that is meant to push forward our particular beliefs without giving all the information. So people at home can receive all the information, read all the sources I have in the box, and make their own mind up. It's not for me to dictate to you how to think, how to believe, My job is to give you the information, give you my 2 cents, and then at that point, you take it, receive it, let it percolate in your mind, and produce your own result. That's my job. But whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.